AITA for telling my wife she's not the boss. For starters, my M41 wife F39 have been together 16 years. When she met me, I was at the height of my business and starting to go up from there. Even during the pandemic, my business is still booming. I had my own house that I lived in by myself. A couple cars and a cottage, although that is unrelated. I own my own factory refurbishing various or engineered equipment. Mostly HVAC stuff. About 3 years after we got married, she decided she had enough of working odd jobs and making not so great money at it, so she expressed she wanted to be a SAHW. I had no problem with this. We don't have kids and don't plan on having any, so I saw this as a win-win, as she got to stay home. And I came home to a nice house. After 3 years of this, she was tired of being a SAHW and wanted to join the workforce. Since she could really only find odd jobs, I suggested she work at my shop. I pretty much created a job for her doing small admin stuff. Nothing crazy. I used to do all this myself plus work on the floor, but this took a load off my shoulders. Obviously she got paid a healthy wage for her work, and I hired a cleaner to come in once a week to help us clean and maintain the house. Onto the problem, one of my workers accidentally ordered 20 of one part instead of 2. This was a bit of a big deal, as now instead of being out a few $100s, I am now out thousands. While I wasn't royally pissed off, this did put a large dent in my overhead, so I had to offload these parts. Barely made my money back, but that's beside the point. My wife, however, found out and absolutely berated this poor guy. I've had this guy work for me for over 10 years and his work is solid. He's a hard-working man. 2 kids. Another on the way, and he's become my go-to guy for almost anything. I didn't hear any of the situation until I heard screaming from my wife that she was going to fire him and he cost her hours of her work and budgeting, etc. This is simply not true, as 2 phone calls and some editing on our books and everything would be right as rain. Tops a 1-hour affair. She and he finally filled me in, and I told her to leave the room so I could talk to him. She refused. I asked again, and once again she refused. I asked one more time and my worker was on the verge of tears, and I yelled at her and told her, "You're not the boss. I make these decisions. Now leave." I talked it over with him. We made amends, as it was an honest mistake and he hasn't had a screw up like this since he started, so I'm not concerned about it happening again. My wife was livid, and after yelling about his screw up has refused to talk to me. I am clearly in the doghouse here, but I refuse to think I did anything wrong, as she was, in my opinion, being needlessly unreasonable and on a power trip. AITA. NTA. If your wife pulled that crap in any other job, she'd be fired on the spot. At work, she's your employee, not your wife, and she has zero business treating your employees like this. Employees with far more seniority to her, nonetheless. This is where I feel I may be TA, because while it is my business and I have worked for over 20 years to make it happen, she is still my wife and has intimate knowledge of my work and how it functions on a daily and even yearly basis. She's been a part of it in some way for the past 10 years or so, whether that's random one-day stints she fills in for one of the office workers, or me bouncing ideas off her to see what sticks. I just honestly think she was on a power trip. Because while I used to do her job for the better part of 15+ years, it is an incredibly simple job that I didn't want to hire anyone else for to save money. I hate to say it, but I only hired her because she wanted a job that made her some extra cash and kept her hands busy. I didn't actually need her for this position. Hey, some perspective from a worker who has worked for several independent or family businesses. The bored, angry spouse is a trope for a reason. Your workers are there to work for you and meet the expectations of you and your clients. Even if you never set the expectations, most workers will give a lot of deference to your wife if she's acting like the boss. This is really stressful to employees and creates some really undue and avoidable stress. I've never seen it work out well, and I've straight up turned down positions because there were red flags that owner's spouse would be having too heavy of a hand husband trying to walk in on our interview while the owner, his wife, was asking me questions, and that led to a fight. So I walked out. So, on top of losing talent when your own employees don't want to deal with the madness, you also stand a good chance of missing out on some great talent and even business opportunities. Obviously you're NTA, and I think you're in a tough spot with your wife. You'll get a lot of people suggesting therapy, and that's not a terrible idea. Most people could benefit from therapy at some point in life. Best of luck to you. Yeah, I agree 100%. Between me and my friends, We've collectively left about 6 different companies because they were a family business, which really meant we had to eat shit when we were right about something and another employee was wrong just because they had the correct last name and we didn't. And we're not, like, skilled laborers. We are engineers. Not a one of us works for a company with less than 3,500 employees now. None of us will ever go back to a small business because of stuff like this. In my limited experience, the high-skilled folks usually get out first. Say what you will about corporate life with massive hour teams, but you rarely have the issue of being stressed because the boss's partner doesn't like the tone of your work. When I was younger, in high school, I worked for a lot of family bookstores and restaurants, and I always found my boss to be at least likable, but then would have to deal with their entitled parent, sibling, or spouse. And boss won't address it because family. Now that I'm more established in a career, I run the moment I see that because such work environment can burn you out within weeks. So I can only imagine somebody who needs the education of an engineer. NTA. Your wife would make a terrible boss. You don't crap on a loyal employee for making an honest mistake. He lost you some money this time. How much money has he made you in the 10 years he's been with the company? NTA. The title is kind of misleading because you are the boss. She needs to find something else to do. If she can't find meaningful employment, how about volunteering or going back to school? NTA. You are the owner of the company and the boss of your employee, and should be the one dealing with problems like this. No one else working office admin would be entitled to do what she did. She owes the employee and you an apology, and really should find a different job. NTA. In fact, if any of my employees pulled that kind of crap screaming at and threatening to fire someone who worked for me, they'd be out on their ass so fast. The fact that your wife did this and has put you in the doghouse when she was the one so blatantly out of line it's not funny shows what kind of person she is. If you want to save any kind of face and earn back your employees' respect, you'll fire the wife. Then think long and hard about your relationship. Marriage counseling should definitely be on the plan for how insanely disrespectful she is to you. ESH. She does for mistreating your employee. You for mixing family into business after 16 years and treating her with a deference you wouldn't give another employee. Your wife will never be your work subordinate no matter how much you want to pretend otherwise. Fire her before she damages your business. Your employees don't need a second unaccountable boss over their shoulder. NTA. I'm happy you stood your ground. Your wife clearly went above your head and began berating this man, though it's not in her pay range. She is not his boss. She is working a position you made up. Yes, she does the work and probably a good job. But she still had no right to yell at a man for a mistake, especially someone who isn't making these mistakes every time. It seems like she has control issues. She didn't like working odd jobs because not enough control there. She didn't like being a SAHW because there was literally no one to control there. Now she has the opportunity to boss people around and takes advantage. This is definitely not a move she would pull if she wasn't married to the boss. Isn't this a chicken and egg debate? If you've been together with someone who's as successful as OP, while you've always done normal jobs, it's somehow predetermined that it will damage your self-esteem in the long term. I think she's always compared herself to him, which is why she tried something completely different, SAHW. But it didn't make her happy. So now that she gained a little bit of power, it went over her head. To be honest, I absolutely hate bosses like her. But you can't say it isn't understandable in some way. Of course she's angry now, because he took that little bit of power from her on which she built her new self-esteem, which makes it a personal attack in her eyes. Sorry for being an armchair psychologist. Just wanted to point it out, because I liked your point. But I thought it was the other way around. OP needs to have a serious talk with his wife. There's clearly more behind it. NTA. Definitely never work with family. But you 100% have to fire her. She's actually caused grounds for you to be liable for a lawsuit. It was never her place to micromanage other employees. It's also not her right to speak over you, refuse to leave the room when commanded, or disrespect you or your staff. The issue is that she sees herself as your equal, and she's not. Not in your business. As your wife and life partner, yes. But she needs to understand her role was never to cross personal lines. She's committed emotion battery, workplace bullying and harassment and insubordination. She must be terminated. Yes, your personal lives will suffer. But this is non-negotiable. Unless she's actually mature enough to see she's the apologize profusely to you and this poor employee. There's not even the slightest possibility you can trust her. She broke your trust and stepped over the line here. NTA. Your wife handled this incredibly unprofessionally. This was a one-off error. She overstepped, but worse, made the workplace a hostile environment for another. You handled it as well as you could. Good luck getting out of the doghouse. You don't deserve to be there. NTA, as it's been your business, she should not have challenged you like that. Also, she majorly stepped over some boundaries at the workplace as well. You guys need to communicate and draw some clear boundaries. Whether she's a manager or not, her behavior was abusive to an employee. You need to make a choice. You can allow your wife to continue working there, or you can lose a lot of valuable employees. She just showed you that she isn't deserving of the trust you placed in her by employing her at your company. If she's yelling like that at your go-to guy, I will bet you 100 that she is treating everyone there like she's their boss. I know therapy is the default, but seriously, she needs to go and figure her shit out. It's way past time she grew up and figured out what she wants to be when she grows up, and also respectful boundaries and communication skills. Good luck. It's going to take a miracle for you to keep marriage and business healthy. NTA. If this has happened once, it's happened a few other times. NTA, but I have a feeling that if you fire your wife from your business, she'll take it a step farther from her obvious behavior towards you at the moment for her mess up and will threaten divorce separation. If that's the case, then you will really need to consider your options. Thankfully, you started this company prior to marrying her, I believe, and there shouldn't be any imminent fallout, hopefully. Good luck. NTA for sure. Perhaps it was a mistake to let her even work for you in the first place. While most of the discussion is going to be about her relationship with her wife for good reason, I can't help but feel awful for this poor guy she was lighting up. A loyal, senior employee made an honest mistake, then he got put on the grill and in his mind may have lost his job, AMD his source of bread money for his family. I know that's not the point of this convo, but man, I feel bad for that dude. NTA. Wow dude. You chose poorly multiple times. I am gonna say she shouldn't be working there, which will probably lead to your divorce. If she stays, get ready for lots of complaining about how all the workers treat her badly. At least 99% of OP's employees already hate OP's wife and will do anything to avoid her. Some might even quit because it's easier than dealing with the boss's wife's power trip if she keeps it up. NTA. Never okay to scream and abuse people like that. Your NTA, you might want to have a talk with your employees, ask them if she done this to anyone else and reassure them that no one is losing their jobs. NTA. But you need a reality check. Working with family is hard as heck. Your wife was extremely out of line. She should probably find another job. Or you and she need to have a long talk, and maybe consider therapy. NTA, it's your business and what you say goes. It's not your fault she can't find other work other than odd jobs that she doesn't like. You have to make it clear to your wife that at work your word is final and that she doesn't have a say. I would say to tell your employees to inform you discreetly if your wife continues that behavior at work, so you could tell her to stop that in private. NTA. All your best employees are probably looking for new jobs right now. If you let this continue, she'll ruin your business. My wife worked at a place like this and left the second she found a new job. The employees dreaded dealing with the owner's wife. The atmosphere was toxic. NTA. If she wasn't married to the boss, she most likely wouldn't be acting like that. I could never work with my husband. When you take a marriage where you are presumably considering each other as equals and then move into a situation where one of you are clearly the boss, it is hard to shift out of being an equal. She can be mad, but only at herself. Maybe it's time to find her own career path. AITA for not firing her. Bravo. ESH. One of your employees started berating one of your other employees and threatened to fire him without the authority to do so. And you're entirely letting that slide because she happens to be your wife. If you're going to hire through nepotism, you need to be ready for uncomfortable conversations and make sure boundaries are drawn. You don't get to pick your battles. You're absolutely underreacting to this outburst in a way that is letting down your employee. You ever read an ESH? Preemptively downvote it. Then upvote it as hard as you can once you finish reading it. Why would you downvote without reading first? INB for all the comments possibly trashing you to any extent. NTA. Seems like she's enjoying a bit of a power trip. But she really crossed the line in berating, screaming at him, threatening him with firing, and finally refusing to leave the room. Please subscribe.